Hey guys, it's Cole, and I wanted to talk about the significance of the Machinist changes and why I'm now exceedingly confident that Machinists are not just in a good spot, but are actually front runners. In fact, and I'm putting myself out there, I am actually excessively confident that with these changes we are going to see so many more Machinists and future progression rating content, including the next ultimate, which is coming out in about a week from now, just because of what Machinists now bring to the table. This patch, Machinists got a ton of number changes, which are obviously great. To keep the Machinist in line with the other physical range DPS is very important, but the most significant one is Dismantle being added back to the Machinist, with the tweaks now to make it a flat 10% damage reduction from the target, which I'm going to say something that will ring more and more true and resonate with people the further I get into the video, but as someone who has been healing for frankly too many years, I can heal you back from 1 HP, and the only HP that truly matters is the one single last HP. Everything else is just icing on the cake. It's the cheese curds and the poutine, which, mind you, is a poutine without cheese curds. I digress. But mitigation is overwhelmingly more potent than the equivalent value of healing. But let's get into that later. But this isn't a healer video, so let's get back to Dismantle. What starts to hint at the hidden power of this skill is that it doesn't specify a damage type. This patch has now given us visual indicators to see if the damage type dealt to us is magic, physical, or the third kind of catch-all unknown type, which lends credence to the claim that a 10% all damage reduction on a 10-second timer is very strong. Contrast Dismantle with other skills like magical range DPS with Addle. That mitigates 10% magical damage and then 5% physical damage. Melee DPS have Feint. That mitigates 10% physical damage and then 5% magical damage. Obviously, both of those skills are excellent and are vital to be properly used in progression rating or simply reducing stress on your healers and letting them contribute more to the clear in farm. But further to that, Machinist is a physical range DPS, and all ranged physical DPS get a 90-second cooldown of 10% raid-wide damage reduction. While they are given different names, I'm just going to call them Tactician from now on, since that's the Machinist's equivalent of what it's called. Which translates to the Machinist is very unique. It gets to double dip on raw mitigation of any form of damage. Most DPS can't mitigate any form of damage in the first place, let alone having two separate options that can obviously be used at different times since they're on completely separate buttons, completely separate cooldowns. That's extremely unique. Now let's pivot a little and explore other excellent forms of utility in Final Fantasy XIV just to really highlight what I'm trying to get at here. Red Mage is a job that is extremely good for progression and deserves the compliments that it gets. It truly honestly does. Aside from Revive, Red Mage is an excellent addition even in parties that never require Revive because of their unique differential, which is going to be the skill Magic Barrier. This skill is very similar to Dismantle in that it reduces damage taken by the party. The heal amp is fine, but at 5% is very incredibly rarely going to make or break. But I'm going to highlight something here that is very important. What should really stand out here is Magic Barrier is also exclusively mitigating magic damage, which I will definitely say largely is what you see for raid-wide AOE damage. It's going to usually be magic damage. But in many cases, it's also been physical or unknown damage, which we used to call darkness. Sorry, random history bit there. But that wasn't caught by Magic Barrier and still will not going into the future. So Dismantle, obviously, if it's a physical raid-wide, would be something that you could use, whereas Magic Barrier wouldn't. Now remember when I said at the start that the single last HP is the one that matters the most? Now let's contrast Magic Barrier that reduces the incoming damage, and so it reduces the spike, versus Summoner, who has Phoenix that provides everlasting flight that heals the party for an amazing 700 potency and can rekindle the target for a burst of 400, and then a trickle of 1000 healing after that. Let me be super honest, this is an awesome set of effects, and it is valuable, no doubt in my mind, especially as a healer. I like this because if I can plan for it, especially with a spell speed Summoner, I I just have a lot more GCDs freed up, honestly. In fact, and I think that this is a very good argument that I have to make, to be fair, in more casual content where there is no risk of dying from major spike damage or very little risk of it, I'd argue that this summoner utility for healing provides more value than Red Mage's magic barrier. I would argue that is true. But in higher end content where there is a genuine risk of spike damage, it is extremely less impressive than magic barrier. The healing is awesome. It definitely saves healer stress and global cooldowns better used elsewhere, but it's not mitigation. If you go below 1 HP, Everlasting Flight is not going to help you. Now let's contrast it to two skills that are also exceptionally powerful. In fact, I'd argue in the hands of the right team using it extremely effectively, and I'll give an example later, would be able to go even further than just raw mitigation, with some major caveats to it. And that's going to be Nature's Manet from Bard and Mantra from Monk. Heal amplification skills can be leveraged to not only amplify raw healing to recover, which is the obvious use case, but to also amplify the power of shields. For many years now, I've complimented both Mantra and Nature's Manet as a scholar, but the problem is with these skills that they are dependent on someone else using them and really leveraging the skill that you have used to set up that mitigation or set up that big healing, which as someone who would be playing the Monk or the Bard does remove control from you in particular. It hands it off to the healers, or the warrior, because what the hell is Shake It Off anymore? But largely, how those heal amps are used depends on the healers, and in Party Finder that can be questionable judgment. But let's explore a scenario that Machinists with their fantastic Dismantle skill actually excels at. Repeated damage, and whether this is multiple area of effect skills spammed over 10 seconds or a persistent ticking of damage over time effect, Dismantle, Reprisal, Tactician are all skills that very much shine here. So look at barriers, such as Scholar's Big Deployment Tactics. It's an impressive barrier. I would be alarmed if anyone had the lack of insight to say that that is not a powerful mitigation tool. It has been since Realm Reborn, allowing cheese of the most insane varieties of mechanics, so much so that they had to split galvanized versus catalyzed barriers. You can still cheese stuff to this day, it's absolutely ridiculous. But what I can tell you from personal experience is that it is highly vulnerable to chip damage, and once that barrier is gone or chipped, it's gone. Successive AoEs can be padded out with it, specifically the first AoE. Think about something like Terminal Relativity from Shadowbringer's E12S, a mechanic that I actually really enjoyed and found extremely cool. A Scholar Barrier was smashed into pieces basically immediately. So what did I fall back on? Sacred Soil, Fey Illumination, and other persistent mitigation effects that would outlast the barrage of area of effect spam. The barrier, once it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't last the whole duration, but something like Dismantle that lasts 10 seconds will impact every single AoE for that 10 seconds. Now during that time I also played Astrologian because they didn't delete Nocturnal Astro, which still makes me sad to this day, but yes, on Astro I can say I definitely did utilize neutral sect spam. I'd set up barrier padding after barrier padding after barrier padding. In fact, that'd be in ideal situations for Bard's Nature's Manet, if I'm being totally fair here, to amplify both the barriers and direct heals, but you also have the heal over time effect because neutral sect. That would be quite the showcase of the new Nature's Manet, but here is the turnaround. Spamming Aspected Helios and Neutral Sect on Astrologian meant that I was throwing global cooldowns that are better used to contributing to the clear straight into the garbage can. That's a very real weakness of that kind of skill. So Machinist with Dismantle, what does it cost? Nothing. Not one thing. It's a simple use of an off global cooldown weave, just like Tactician, which is something that makes this ability very beautiful. You don't need to target the ground, you don't need to change targets, you don't need to lose damage or anything. You simply press the button and the next 10 seconds that Dismantle skill may very well, honest to goodness, save the party from a complete wipe. And that is why I truly think Machinist is now a front runner for any progression rating group. With that said, I hope everyone's enjoying patch 6.3, and if this video helps you out or you find it interesting, I would super appreciate if you dismantled that like button and cat daddied that subscribe button. Like button needs a nerf, okay?